Welcome back, Freelancers. Undefeated Rescue, and we're continuing with the Gear Showcase series. Today we're back in the storm. We'll head on to Bastion and go over some gear. Okay, so we're continuing with the focus seals, and today we are going over 10,000 Suns. So 10,000 Suns is a detonator. It does about 3,700 damage. It has a recharge of 3, which is actually very low, and then it has a radius of 6, which is actually pretty average. So not too bad for recharge and radius. 10,000 Suns is an upgraded burning orb. Combo effect is its chaining, and then Striker's Wrath. After hitting an enemy, gain 10% increased damage for 10 seconds, stacks of 10. So basically, if you hit enemies with this 10 times, you'll have 100 extra damage. Pretty much straightforward. However, the consistency and holding on to that, because it only lasts for 10 seconds, so whatever you're doing, you have to make sure you come back to this. So like if you're using it for the ult, if you're using it on your ult, after about 10 seconds, it's gone. So you won't really see the full benefit of it. Unless you're spamming your ult, and even then, like, it takes a while for the animations to kind of like play out before you can actually land a hit. So the one that we're using here is just for a bunch of gear recharge, but we'll go into GM1 and kind of showcase it and go over some thoughts. So we are in GM1 and we're back in the dungeon. So before we go in there, I just kind of want to showcase like stuff that's not in the description. So when you just like press this like normal with the gear button, the associated gear button, it just shoots out a little fireball. As you can see, like over in the left hand corner or left hand side, we're not getting any status effects over there. So it definitely has to hit an enemy to with like some grenades and with some other glaives, you can just throw them randomly and it'll give you it. This will not. So in order to and this like fireball that we're throwing out here right now doesn't do anything. It does damage, but that's it. It doesn't detonate and it doesn't prime, which that's something we'll talk on the back end that might have been more interesting. In order to use this to detonate, you have to charge it up and wait till this bar is flashing yellow or pulsing yellow before you can actually do it. And as you can see, it throws out a giant fireball. Here's the thing though, like, if you have to let this charge all the way up, you can time it kind of well to get it to actually come out as a fireball, but if you let this out too soon, it'll come out as like the mini fireball or burning orb. But it's doing okay damage. Yeah, I'm seeing about 18,000. Well, see, so it's hard to say because it's stacking on the left-hand side. You can see Striker's Wrath, so it keeps getting more and more powerful as it goes, but it's going down pretty quickly. I really wish it lasted for about 20 seconds, but we could. This is how you'd want to use it to spam it to get. As you can see, like hitting their shield, we do continue to get the status effect, or sorry, the Striker's Wrath. So yeah, if you just wanted to do quick little damage, in comparison, it's doing pretty much the same. Well, it was about half on that one, but I'm trying to think of a way to word this. So the little fireballs do about 10,000 with max stacks, where the big fireball does about 20,000 with max stacks. So that's something they don't talk about in the description. And then when you throw this at a large area, it has a radius, so it will affect a big group. And GM1 is doing pretty good damage, but there's few things that have struggled in GM1. It does do pretty good crowd control. And I don't have like any additional damage on mine. It's all like recharge. This is where you might have issues because this is a fire elementalist. So it did take down their shield. And then we just burn them down with the other one. So the way for this to be efficiently used is you'd want to get up to max stacks almost immediately. And then for individual enemies, you would want to just hit each one. And then whenever you find groups, you'd want to just toss it at them. So here's a shielded or an armored enemy. Gonna have to land one overheat. So because it's fire, it's gonna do a little bit more damage against armored enemies. Where it does 10,000 to a regular enemy, it's been doing about 12,000 to armored enemies. So little fireballs do about 7,000 to their shield. Let's let them charge up real quick. And big fireball does 11,000. So not great. So this probably be better to take down the shield with this one. And we're not on max stacks right now. So I'm gonna try and get a max stacks, but it doesn't seem like they're gonna get the shield back in time. Yeah, I'm gonna end up killing them. That's alright, we'll go into GM3 to showcase it off better there. Alright, so we're in GM3 and we are back in the Necropolis. So I brought Winter's Wrath with me, which is not super beneficial for this build, but the idea is for showcasing is kind of like to freeze the enemies in place. And then from there, when we freeze them in place, then I can showcase how Striker's Fury with the Orb or 10,000 Suns works. We'll wait for him spawning and we'll kind of showcase the tracking. So, as you can... Oh, one just literally spawned. So it does have okay tracking. You kind of still got to be close onto them, but... And then as you can see, like, damage-wise, it's not really doing a lot. If they move, it seems like it's gonna miss. Realistically, I'm just trying to get my stack back real quick, so we can go in here with max damage. This is kind of the issue you're gonna have with it, is trying to show it off. So big fireball's doing the same damage, little fireball's doing pretty much the same damage. So nothing special there. Here's where the issue is gonna be: is if you're trying to charge this up and use it as a detonator, that's gonna cost you a resource called time, which honestly is kind of against you because, and then, let's see. Oh, see, like right there, I tried to detonate them and I couldn't, and I got real close to not hitting them in time. Let's see if we can hit this group. So it's a little hard to use and it's hard to maintain your stacks. I know I'm not really losing them very quickly, but it's because I'm keeping my eye more on them than I am anything else. And as you can see, like, even with the 10 stack of Striker's Wrath and using the big fireball, I'm having trouble taking them out. Like, the time it takes to charge this up after you've got your 10 stacks, and then the damage it does, the output that it has once it's at that, it really is not all that impressive. Especially because you have to charge it up, but there's a lot of gear in the game you don't even have to charge up. And there, I tried to charge it all the way up again and I just messed up the timing. You have to really be on top of the timing. I'm gonna go ahead and freeze him because I would like to freeze a group. They're not freezing for some reason. I think this group did. No, they didn't. That's weird. Okay. There we go. Just gonna pop them out real quick to get my shield and health back. Actually, I'm just gonna take this storm out. Alright, so we've got an armored enemy here. It's doing about the exact same it was doing to them before. But you see how, like, in GM1 we really weren't having any issues, and now I'm like super dependent on being able to freeze them into a group to justify using this, and I'm about to go down again. So I'm just going to go ahead and wipe out this group and we'll go up against the ranger. We'll go ahead and take them on. So little fireballs do, well, alright, yeah, so little fireballs do about 7,000 against their shield. Big fireball does about 10,000 extra, so 17. So here's the thing, if I want to take down their shield, I'm going to have to do this to spam it. And see, even then, like, I'm pretty much hitting them, but not really. Like, the aim assist really sucks. You'd think it would have, like, alright, so 12,000 for a normal small fireball, and then about 28 for a large fireball. So we'll go ahead and see. See, this is where it's going to be an issue, because I'm not sure I can freeze. Okay, I was able to freeze them, so not bad. Okay damage. Oh, we got that bug again. That sucks. So I'm just going to go ahead and take him out, because this is going to take forever. Oh, okay. I was going to try and showcase like how the different elements do different damage to the enemy types. So that's where it's hard to determine like if this is actually doing damage. It is. I've definitely tested this on similar enemy types to verify it, but it's inconsistent. So I don't want to go in here and say oh, it's 100% going to be viable for ult builds. Like that's kind of hard to justify if I can't prove to you with justifiable numbers or like show you what I'm doing and getting. So I don't want to go that way, but I personally have seen it go increase damage numbers. The only problem is if you hit an enemy type, it's only going to last for 10 seconds. And positioning and moving around, unless you're like on one of the bosses, or sorry, the stronghold bosses, you're not going to be able to maintain that 10 stack for 10 seconds. Let's see here. Okay, so let's go over some box checking. Is it efficient? Well, on its own, if you're not looking at it from the masterwork perk standpoint, you can spam this quite a bit, and it still does about half damage without 10 stacks, and it gets more powerful the more you use it. And right there, I'm out of stacks, or I'm out of charges. It's a recharge build, so they come back pretty quickly. And in order to charge it, you have to have one fully charged. So we'll go ahead and run it down, and I'll show you. Like I need to have like. So if you have a lot of charges and you have a good recharge build, you can charge it up as a detonator. And its recharge is very low, so I can get pretty much stacks right away, even with my low recharge version that I have. It's still not bad. You do need to consider though, like you're gonna want one with charges. So that's kind of like a description you kind of need to be looking for, is one that has charges on it, especially if you're trying to get Striker's Wrath, which is really like the big point to it. Like even though it's fire damage and it'll do better damage against armored enemies, you really should be using this as a detonator. But even using it as a detonator, there's better options that exist. Actually, we'll go ahead and look in here and compare it to some of its other detonators in the focus seals. So other detonators it has to compete with is Black Ice, which does about the same damage, has a little bit higher recharge, but its combo effect, or sorry, its masterwork perk freezes a chain of enemies. So you realistically don't even, yeah, I kind of feel like they're both equally kind of just different. They both detonate, they both do similar damage. It's just the type of damage they do. I think this one's gonna be better for crowd control. This one might be better for single target, even though this is a single target one on its own. Like it doesn't have a radius, and this one does. I still feel like this one's better for crowd control, because if you hit an enemy, you freeze like a whole group, and you can chain it too. So it just like freezes a line of enemies. Whereas with this one, if they're not in that radius of 6, which is still a pretty generous radius, you're only going to hit those individuals, and that's only if you've charged up for a big fireball. The little one is only going to be single point, even if it hits, because it has like next to no aim assist. And that's kind of where I have a problem with it, because it doesn't have aim assist, and it's not like 10,000 Sun where it tracks to enemies. It can be complicated to gain or maintain these 10 stacks of Striker's Wrath. Where with this, all you have to do is hit an enemy, and it does have pretty good tracking, so it's going to hit those enemies. It's just going to freeze a line of enemies. So I think this is better for crowd control than this. And then, I mean, if we're really comparing to all the detonators, the other detonator it compares to is Steam Vent, and Steam Vent does almost the exact same damage. It has a little bit higher recharge, but it also has fire effect. So, and it's just ridiculous. Steam Vent is probably the most powerful gear in the game. Because it deals both fire and ice damage, so it confuses enemies like just in general, like enemies resistance, because it's doing 2 different types of damage at once. So it basically, and we'll go over it in in that video, but it's better than 10,000 Suns, especially as a detonator. Just in general, it's better than 10,000 Suns, but as a detonator, it's definitely better than 10,000 Suns. The only thing a 10,000 Sun has that Steam Vent doesn't is Striker Strength, which the best way to use Striker Strength realistically outside of a detonator is to use it to get stacks and then use those stacks towards another piece of gear and basically increase your damage. So like Binary Star, you would realistically run with Binary Star and then just get all your stacks really quickly. When I thought about bringing that build in, because I have been using that one, you could just come in and just get your stacks back really quickly, or 10 stacks, and then launch Binary Star and just let it go to town. And as we went over on that video about Binary Stars, like it's very effective and very efficient, and it will prime enemies too. So once all those enemies are primed, you can detonate them and get all that big number damage. Here's the thing is now you've become a firestorm. Your only abilities are fire related. You got a fire primer and a fire detonator. So if you go up against a fire elementalist or any kind of stronghold boss that is resistant to fire, you're pretty much useless. Not necessarily useless, you're not going to be doing the same kind of damage numbers that you should be doing. So that's kind of the problem with the storming overall, with how like majority of their gear works, is it's all elemental driven. Most of it's elemental driven. So if you come up against an enemy type that is resistant to that type of element, that kind of renders you useless. You can still do pretty good damage. Binary Star is still ridiculous on its own, but now you're relying on Binary Star to do everything for you. And then the question is yeah, sure, that can give you more damage, but that's only if you maintain your 10 stacks. So you're gonna have to be switching back between Binary Star and spamming this. So you're gonna be really, really busy. Okay. So I think for efficiency, we've kind of talked about it. It's sort of efficient. I'm not going to say it's not. I know I kind of went on a little bit of a rant there, but I mean, efficiency-wise, it is efficient. You've got a bunch of charges. It has a very low recharge, and then you have an option to use the big fireball is what we're calling it for now, because I just couldn't think of a better name for it. So definitely efficient. Now, is it viable? This is where I have problems with it, and I kind of talked about, like, in comparison to some of its other gear, they're better. In my opinion, they're better. I think Black Ice is better for crowd control, which is ironic because the way this gear is kind of marketed is it's better for crowd control. But I can just do more and more reliably with Black Ice. The Striker Strength, even though it gives you 100 extra damage, that's not impossible to get with just like normal inscriptions. Like 100 gear damage on an inscription is actually not unattainable. So that 100% is even though it's nice, it's really not all that great. So yeah, I don't think it's very viable. I mean, so here's the thing, it's a detonator, right? But it's not a consistent detonator. Like, you have to charge it up, and if you don't get to the charge all the way, you messed it up, and now you got to start again. So, and because the little fireball has like no tracking, that could potentially put you at risk of losing stacks. So it's viable as a combo detonator, but as far as like the masterwork perk and just in general, it's not very consistent, which to me makes it not very reliable. So I'm gonna say it's not viable. I know there's gonna be some questions about that, because usually everything that's a detonator I usually go with being viable, but I really don't feel like it is. I feel like it's like on the cusp of just not being efficient, and it's right below that standard of being viable. Like, okay, it does combo damage, but you got to charge it up. You have to wait for the animation, and then by that time they might have moved, and it has no tracking, so you might have missed them. They might not have been in that radius. So I'm gonna disagree with that. And then, is it fun? So detonating groups, I think is fun, but trying to manage your stacks, trying to make sure you're hitting enemies, make sure you got perfect aim, and it's just really, really busy for one piece of gear. And the Masterwork perk is just kind of lackluster, just 100% extra damage. That's it. just 100%. Now, you don't necessarily have to go all the way. If you can maintain 5, you're getting 50%. But then again, that inscription can get rolled on just about anything. Anything can give you around like in the mid 20s. I see that pretty often on inscriptions, are like mid 20 gear damage or global damage. And that applies to everything or gear specifically. So like I see those all the time. I mean, on this one alone that I've got, take a quick look at it. So I've got one with the charges, which I'm on right now, and this one's got 175 gear damage, and then this one also has 175 gear damage with an additional 18 gear damage. So like this isn't impossible. Like already I've got 75% extra gear damage than I would have gotten if I just read it as stacks, and now I'm just running as normal 10,000 suns, and then I don't have to worry about gear recharge because it recharges on its own. So it kind of sucks, in my opinion, because it's almost like you have to make a choice. Do you want to use the Masterwork perk to get that additional damage, which means you're probably not using this in the most viable way possible, or do you just want to use it as a detonator, which means now you're not using the Masterwork perk pretty much at all? I mean, that's the way I think is the best to treat it. It's just treat it as a detonator, charge it up all the way, and then you'll be getting stacks, and if you're consistently detonating, then that's a good option. So that's the way I look at it. I personally am going to give it the thumbs down. If you do see this in a regulator store, I wouldn't waste money on it. There's nothing about it that says it needs to be in your inventory other than just having it to have it. There's not a lot of builds this fits into, in my opinion. It's a detonator, but that's about it. Like I said, there's better options in that gear slot. So I'm going to end the video there. But yeah, I'm Defeated Rescue, and I hope to see you guys out in Bastion.